Hello, everyone. It's Aaron Christensen with Horror 101 with Dr. AC, and welcome back to Scare-A-Thon 2025, benefiting the International Rescue Committee. And tonight we have a very special guest. We're going to be talking to Bobby Zier of LUGOSI Theater. Let's bring Bobby in right now. Bobby Zier of LUGOSI Theater.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.
So, Bobby, I am super excited to chat with you. Thank you so much for being part of Scare-A-Thon 2025. You and I met 2023 Flashback Weekend, and you were just walking around. I was over at my friend John Kitley's table, and you were looking at some reference books, and I just immediately was struck by your energy and your excitement and your love for classic horror movies. That was the first time you'd been to Flashback, right?
No, I have been going for years, actually.
Oh, no kidding. We just never crossed paths.
Yeah, we just never crossed paths. Yeah. And who knows? I mean, we may have seen each other, but like every, conventions, there's so much going on,
That's right. That's right. When was the first time you went to Flashback?
I don't remember what year it was. I remember Robert Englund was there, and that was incredible. And I remember Heather Langenkamp was there. I don't remember the year, but it was just like, Flashback is always, everyone is always so nice. It's such a great environment.
And is that where you met Svengoolie for the first time?
Yeah, that is where I met Svengoolie. Flashback Weekend, they have a costume contest every year, and he's the judge for the costume contest. And it's like what's so amazing about him when you see him in person, it's just like the show. Like his mind like works like that. Like so someone came up and they were dressed as Freddy Krueger, and they had like that. You know how Freddy Krueger has a hat?
Yes.
And Svengoolie's like, "Hey, you stole Ed Norton's hat." Like from the Honeymooners, because that's gonna look like that.
You have such a love for like old classic TV and movies and things like that. Your YouTube channel, your Instagram, your TikTok is called LUGOSI Theater. What is it about Dracula, the 1931 version with Bela Lugosi, that resonated with you so strongly that you decided you named your channel after them?
Honestly, I've always loved Dracula. Even before I'd seen the movie, he was like my favorite Halloween character. Because, Dracula's so iconic. He's not just in the movies. He's in Halloween decorations. He's on Halloween cards. He's on your breakfast cereal, And he was always my favorite because I had seen the Munsters even before I'd seen Dracula. And he was my favorite on there. And then I remember the local video store, they had just remodeled. And they had a whole section of just the Universal monsters. And I mean, like Dracula, Frankenstein, but also like Son of Dracula, Dracula's daughter, like all of them, And I rented Dracula. And I remember it was that scene where he comes down the stairs and says, "I am Dracula." And I was 7 years old, and I started jumping up and down. This is the real Dracula. This is the real Dracula. I just loved it immediately. And then it was like 1 year later, and I was watching my first ever horror documentary I'd ever seen, Monster Mania, hosted by Jack Palance. And that's when I learned that Bela Lugosi was from Transylvania. And I was like, what? This really is the real Dracula. I just love the movie. And every time I could like learn more about him, I love learning more about him. And then of course, starting with Dracula, that's how I was able to watch all the other Universal monster movies and discovered all the other classic horror.
Had you seen Frankenstein or The Mummy or any of those other before you saw Dracula?
My memory's kind of vague, but I'm pretty sure I'd seen Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. How could you not? Because I know my dad had the videotape. So
after we met at Flashback, you came on our episode when we were celebrating the anniversary for Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, and that was the first time you were on the show, and you were just wonderful. And you've been back numerous times since then.
Thank you so much. I love being on your show. It is so much fun. I love being able to talk about these movies with you. And like all your guests are like amazing. Like I'm honored to be included. Like they're all so knowledgeable.
I'm curious. You said your father had the Abbott Costello meet Frankenstein videotape. Is your family also big horror fans as well?
They're not quite as extreme as I am, but that's a hard one. But they like horror too. Like growing up, me and my dad, we watched Svengoolie on Saturday nights. There was a kind of a Saturday night tradition, and then my mom. She used to watch Dark Shadows, so she got me into Dark Shadows.
And your sister is also a big horror fan as well.
Oh my gosh, yes. And like we've kind of like discovered a lot together. Like I remember like She shares the same birthday as Marilyn Monroe, and at first, like, that was her favorite. But then I started telling her all about Vampira, and then Vampira became her favorite.
How did you come to start your TikTok and Instagram channels?
It was actually it was Katie's idea. It was my big sister's idea, and because I had been doing YouTube for a long time, and I started just kind of doing like movie reviews. It was called Dusty Old Movies, and she suggested I make a TikTok. We were trying to figure out what to call it. I had started the YouTube channel before I was diagnosed with autism, so I was kind of learning through all the years of doing YouTube. I was kind of learning myself too.
Wow.
And getting more comfortable with being myself. And I was like, the channel, it's wild when I look back at it, because I could see in the videos how I was becoming more open and more comfortable being me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they started to become more Dracula oriented. And we were trying to think of a name. And I always like in like New York, how there's like the Richard Rogers Theater and the Helen Hayes Theater. I always thought that was really cool. And so we were thinking Dracula Theater, and then we thought that's a little bit too on the nose. and then like at the same time, we were like Lugosi Theater.
It totally fits, and it has a nice ring to it as well.
Right? I'm so like, not to toot my own horn, but like when we thought of it, it was like that's like perfect, you know?
Why were you starting the TikTok versus what you were doing on YouTube?
Initially, it was just a way of like kind of getting my videos out there more. 'Cause at that point, I was doing like a lot of like little skits where I would play Dracula. And then I did a video on TikTok. It was the first time I had ever come out as having autism on like social media.
Got it.
And I did this video, and it was just like, hi, I'm Bobby. I'm autistic, and my special interest is Dracula. And it got so many views. Like I never, like, when I made that video, it wasn't super intimidating because I didn't think like that many people would see it. The next day, it was the first video I had ever got that got over 100,000 views.
Wow.
And like everyone was so nice. The comments were like, like, you make me feel seen, I have autism too, or I love Dracula too. Like, everyone was just super supportive. And that's where I kind of started to reshape what I was doing into like kind of like what it is now, of like kind of a combination of Dracula, autism, and being you.
Well, and I think that's really what it's about, right? If you have something that you're really, really excited about, oftentimes you're not surrounded by people who share that same passion. And that's why it's so exciting to find people who really do get it. I mean, that's what I love about the panels we do, is that everybody's really excited to talk about this specific movie.
Exactly. That's what's so wonderful. It's like you're connecting with other people. Other people are watching. They're connecting with it too. That's why it's so like such a joyous like thing, is like, it's like everyone's able to express what they've loved for so long.
Yeah. And if you show your passion, that allows them to show theirs.
Yeah.
And
I even did, because I did some videos where I was, I just kind of said, my special interest is Dracula. What's yours?
Right.
And then you have no idea, like, everyone was sharing like all the things they loved, and they felt so, it was amazing,
Yeah, I love that space that you create. It is special. You're a 2-time Rondo Award winner.
The first year was Special Recognition Award. The second was Monster Kid of the Year.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tell us, what it means to be Monster Kid of the Year for those who don't know the Rondo Awards, and then tell us what winning Monster Kid of the Year means to you.
So the term Monster Kid, when the old Universal Monster movies started being shown on TV, like in the 1950s, the initial audience, they used to call them Monster Kids, because they were typically kids who hadn't seen it when they were out in theaters,
right?
But they got into it, and they started collecting. They had monster model kits and monster bubble bath, and that was like the first new generation of fans, and the name just kind of stuck for people who are keeping it alive. And the Monster Kid of the Year, that's the person who did the most that year to keep classic horror alive. It was amazing. I actually would it be okay if I read the letter they sent me?
Please.
This was written by David Colton, who runs the Rondo Awards. Dear Bobby, we are delighted to send you this Rondo Award honoring you for the 2023 Monster Kid of the Year. Is voted in the 22nd annual Rondo Classic Horror Awards. Your continuing efforts as Bela Lugosi on TikTok and other social media platforms has helped keep classic horror icons and history alive for new generations of monster kids. You also bolster self-confidence in your viewers and listeners to embrace all their enthusiasms. Great lessons indeed. Zier Nation obviously agreed, turning out in record numbers for you in the Rondo category honorees only win once. Many voters said they were inspired as well by your triumphs over autism, which add to a life being very well lived. Congratulations. The Rondo Awards, named after Rondo Haddon, the obscure B-movie villain of the 1940s, celebrate the best in classic horror research, creativity, and film preservation. A record email vote of more than 6,500 ballots were conducted by the Classic Horror Film Board, a 29-year-old message board. We hope this Rondo finds you a comfortable spot in the House of Zier. And sorry for the delay. Supply chains will bedevil us here in the mountains of Transylvania.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I was honored to receive a couple of Rondo Awards myself. And it really it's wonderful to be recognized by your peers, by people who love horror as much as we do.
It really is. I remember even like in the chat room, the night that they were going to announce the winner, and I saw like the names pop up, and I saw Tom Weaver, and I was like, I know him. He was like my Creature from the Black Lagoon DVD. You know, I was still a kid when the DVDs were coming out, and I was seeing the making of documentaries. So like names like Tom Weaver and like Gregory Mank and all these like horror historians, like
yeah,
I grew up watching them. Like I remember thinking like, wow, how do they know so much? You know, like, these people are amazing, you know? And like to see that name pop up in there, like that's him. I know him. And like to see authors of books I have, you know, in the chat room and more winners. It's like you said, it's being accepted by your peers. I remember even Bob Kramer, who wrote Lugosi, the Man Behind the Cape, the first Bela Lugosi biography. He congratulated me and said, "You're one of us."
Yeah, you are absolutely one of us, Bobby.
Thank you so much.
What do you think it is about horror films that continue to attract new fans, especially like these old classic horror films? You know, we still see new fans discovering them and falling in love with them.
You know, I think a lot of people who love horror are people who've always felt a little bit different. And I think there's, especially like the universal monsters, characters like Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, you can identify with that part in their person and the characters. You know, even though, you know, technology changes, but you know, the actor's performance, that doesn't change. You could always connect to that. What are the amazing things in Dracula? Remember those the close-ups of Bela Lugosi's face with the eyes being lit.
Yeah.
Those are still as creepy as they were when they came out in 1931. You know, Renfield's laugh. It's still an amazing, creepy laugh. You know, like characters like Dracula and the Wolfman, Creature of Black Lagoon, they're outsiders who don't fit into society. So I feel that more people today are more apt to watch Dracula than say Casablanca. I really do. And I think it's because that feeling of being an outsider, that feeling that was portrayed in those movies, that's still a feeling that's felt. Even all these years later, it's still so easy to connect with that.
Yeah. That's what I was alluding to earlier, that feeling of being kind of an outsider or somebody who's strange. And then suddenly you find somebody who gets it, or you see yourself represented, like you said, in a movie where you're like, I relate to Frankenstein's monster. You know, I relate to the Wolfman who feels like he's cursed,
Right.
you know, and strange things happen to him. You know, I think that those archetypes continue to endure in a way that maybe they don't for other classic films.
I agree. And with Dracula, I think you're seeing a character who's an outsider and misunderstood, but he like embraces it. He's proud to dress different. I have a cape on and I have my medallion on. Even when he's at the concert hall, yes, he's trying to fit in, but he's still Dracula. When he says, "Remember, there are far worse things awaiting man than death." He's not really trying to fit in when he says that.
Read the room, Bela. You've been a guest with Svengoolie. Was it at Flashback Weekend where you were helping with the awards? Were you on his show? How did that come about?
And the first time I was in the costume contest that he was hosting. And that was amazing because I was dressed as Dracula, and I got to be on stage with Svengoolie and just like interacting with him, saying, "I am Count Dracula," and he's like, "Oh, you're Dracula," and I did the thing like where I say, "Come here," and he was like, "Go there." Like that was so cool. And like I felt like I was in Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Like the way it just like made like it was amazing. Like I never imagined I'd be able to play off Svengoolie, on stage. And they showed that the clip on the show. And then also one night, me and my sister and our friend, we went to, they were doing a Fright Night baseball game in a baseball field. And Svengoolie was there. And anyone dressed up, you got to march around the field. And I was dressed up. And so was my sister. And they showed that on the show. And then a couple of years ago, they were doing a contest called the Spawn of Svengoolie, and me and my sister, we made a video of ourselves, saying who we were, and that we want to be the Spawn of Svengoolie, and we sent that in, and they showed that on the show. And what's so amazing too is whenever they show the clips, it always is like the movie is perfect too, because it'll be like the Old Dark House or Return of the Vampire, like it's always like they've never showed my clip on like Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It's always like a big universal classic.
Or another guest appearance you did was on the Howard Stern show. That was earlier this year, right?
Yes, that was incredible.
Tell us about that experience.
I grew up like he was on E when I was growing up. He was on the E channel. He's like this humongous force in radio. Out of nowhere, I got an email from someone associated with him, and asked me if I'd be on the show. It was like a miracle, like because I guess before they had played a clip of me on the show from one of my videos, which was how did they find me? And this is Howard Stern. And I wasn't interviewed by Howard Stern himself. It was one of his associates, but it was amazing. It was me and then this lady who had done an interpretive dance of Dracula, but she did it. It was like super well done with like costumes and everything. Like it was a full production. It was honestly incredible. Like to think that this is being broadcast on the Howard Stern show, and I'm being recognized as like an actual Dracula person. I think even in the description it said like Dracula expert. Is like, and I remember when I saw it, I was like, are they talking about me or the lady?
You're also very active in the haunted house scene these days, and October is your busy time of the year. What are some of the best things about being a haunter?
First of all, the community is incredible. It really, how we were talking about earlier about how a lot of people love horror. You feel like an outsider. In the haunt community, it's the feeling of someone who's always been different, and now we found our group. Yeah. And it's a very, very close-knit community. Everyone is so supportive of each other. I've made so many wonderful friends in it. And it was, again, my sister got me into it because she's the wardrobe manager and plays inmate 13 at the old Joliet Haunted Prison. And then she got me to work there. And then I had also been, my friend does a home haunt, which is when it's a haunted house in your backyard called Horror on Highland. And at Joliet Prison, I'm the mad scientist, which Bela Lugosi played a lot of mad scientists, so I dig it. And then at Horror on Highland, on Dracula. Like at Horror on Highland, you'll see like it's all free, and you'll see like you'll get new people every year, but you'll get a lot of the same people going through too. And I remember there's this one kid who loves Dracula. I remember his grandma told me that my grandson loves Dracula. And last year, every time he went through like again and again and again and again. And every time I would try to do like a different Dracula line, do like something a little bit different, and he would give me a hug afterwards. Like how nice, And then there was another kid. He was like this 11-year-old punk. And he said, "I'm not scared of you, Dracula." So I did the 1927 Broadway dialogue. "From now on, you'll carry out any suggestion that reaches you from my brain. Instantly and without question, when I veer you to do a thing, it shall be done." And I went like I was gonna bite him, And he went, "Ah!" No, he was scared of Dracula.
Take that, punk.
Right?
You were recently honored by the organization Haunters Against Hate. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization and how you're involved with them?
Sure, they are an amazing organization. So they're a pro LGBTQ organization in the haunted house community, and they go throughout to schools and different places throughout the U.S. Just kind of like advocating love and acceptance. Their motto is "Hate is the scariest thing of all."
Right.
And we I like you said, I just won the Haunter of the Year award, which was incredible. It was in Louisville, Kentucky, where Todd Browning, the director of Dracula, is from. My big sister, she made a speech like before I walked on, and I made a speech, and I taught a seminar about Dracula that weekend. Like it was that feeling of acceptance of your peers, of that we love you, we recognize you, and it was incredible.
Well deserved. I mean, again, you create a very open and loving space on your show, which is why I keep asking you to come back and be on my show.
I love every time. Thank you so much for having me on. I always appreciate it.
Well, I was going to say, because we had you on for Abbott Costello Meet Frankenstein, which seemed logical, being that that's Bela Lugosi's return to being Dracula at the Universal Studios. But you also were on our Vampires of 1979 episode, our Vampires of 1970 episode, and our Interview with the Vampire episode. And that all, obviously with your passion for Dracula and vampires, that all made sense. But you also were on our Creature from the Black Lagoon episode and our Val Lewton episode and our Shining episode. Like, you clearly love the entire genre.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Actually, the Creature, he's after Dracula, he's my next favorite Universal monster.
What is it you like about him?
Honestly, he's like so cool. Like he has such a neat look. He has a neat look, the way he moves, and the theme song he has a bam bam bam. And you and me got to see it downtown in the original 3D format.
Yeah. With the Music Box earlier this year had their big 3D festival. Bobby came in and we got to watch that together. That was an amazing day. I'm so glad we got to cross paths again in person and see that movie together. The Shining episode, you talked about going to the Stanley Hotel and having an experience there.
The Stanley Hotel, which is the hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. Me and Katie were there. We were doing the ghost tour. And they had this thing where you were in the basement, and on the palm of your hand you held a dum-dum sucker, like you would get at the doctor's office, and with the sucker part on the palm, and then if it's leaning, that means the ghost is making contact. And the hostess, she kept saying, your sucker's leaning, your sucker's leaning, your sucker's leaning. And then I felt this weird pressure on my body and a splash of cold water on my foot. And then I fell unconscious on the floor.
Oh my God.
I shook for a little. I heard, as I was coming to, I heard my sister say, "Is he possessed?" Which I don't know if which I think she was trying to scare everybody.
That's awesome. And you shared that story on our Shining panel. Well, you mentioned a little bit, but what is it that you love about these panel discussions? Like, why do you keep coming on my little show?
Well, part of it is the same feeling of winning the Rondo Monster Kid of the Year award and Haunter of the Year award. It's this amazing feeling of acceptance I get on your show, that I'm with like other horror experts and I'm included, and it's to me that's amazing. It's fun to talk about these movies. You don't always like get a chance to really let's really have a good 2-hour deep dive on Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Yeah. Let's talk about the Creature from the Black Lagoon for 2 hours. That's not an opportunity I get very often. And so when it comes up, I just love it. It's amazing. And then hearing other people's insight too, like things that I never thought of and things that I never saw were there. And it makes me look at it in a different way.
Yeah, that is, honestly, I've said this on numerous shows, but the thing I love about these panels is being able to look at these movies through new eyes. People bringing new observations that never occurred to me before. And suddenly a very old movie, one I've seen over and over again, suddenly is new. And I'm so thankful that people like you and our other guests come on and they do share those insights, and everybody's I think everybody knows that they can talk at a certain level. Nobody has to kind of like dumb things down like you would if you were talking to, somebody who wasn't as familiar.
Exactly. Like, you don't have to explain, like, this is who Bela Lugosi is, or this is who like we all kind of know it. And I think that brings such a great place for your audience too, because then they're able to listen to these conversations about movies that they may have seen for years and years and years and never thought of it that way. I love these old movies so much. Sometimes I wonder, like, what would it be like to live back then and see them when it first came out, but I wouldn't be able to express my love for it like any other time but now.
Yeah, that's true. Well, speaking of now, October is kind of the time when, everybody gets to let their horror flag fly. What are some of your favorite like October traditions? And is there anything in particular you're looking forward to this year?
Oh, I have so many. Of course, every year I get the monster cereals, Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and Boo Berry, and they have a cool box. I don't know if you've seen the box yet. They have they teamed with the Jim Henson Studios, so this year they made them like kind of like Muppet like.
That's awesome. No, yeah, I have not seen those yet.
So that's a tradition. Count Chocula, it's a bit like they're a bit much for breakfast, but I love them for dessert.
There you go. There you go.
I'll put for Count Chocula, I'll add like maraschino cherries to like blood vessels.
Nice.
So that's the tradition. Like I said, Horror on Highland, working there. This is the 11th year I've been there.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So it's been amazing because like in last year we were voted the best home haunt in Illinois, which was huge. And I started like the first year that we started doing that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but my costume was from Party City, Like, so I was like still figuring it out too, That's a tradition, of course, watching great horror movies. Bela Lugosi's birthday is on October 20th, so I always do a Bela Lugosi marathon that day. And I'm trying to bring in a new tradition of having hot apple cider. I've always loved Halloween. I don't understand how I've never done that.
As you mentioned before, you're always been very open, at least in my experience, about your autism, and it makes it a very safe space for people to connect with you around that. What would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions around autism and about you personally?
So there's definitely some misconceptions out there right now. Autism, I know now they're trying. People in the government, RFK Jr., are trying to say that it comes from Tylenol or circumcisions, whereas it really, most evidence points to autism being hereditary. Someone is just diagnosed with autism and they're the first one in their family. You may be thinking like, how is that possible? But you have to remember, a lot of times, older generations, they weren't diagnosed with that. Right. They weren't diagnosing autism like they are now. And so you have to think like, do I have a relative who maybe had an unusual routine, or maybe he was super into something? It's very possible that they had autism and they just didn't know it. So I think that's that's a misconception going on right now.
You just did a recent reel on that as well, I think.
Yes, I did. Yeah. I try not to dive too deep into like what's going on in the political scene, but when it comes to autism, I feel it's like my duty to speak up. I think another misconception is it's we all hear autism as a spectrum, but a lot of people picture it as being just from like low functioning to high functioning, whereas really there's this every person with autism has these like big like kind of lists of symptoms, and some people with autism may be really good at socialization, but they have a really, really hard time when the routine is changed. Or like, so everyone's list of symptoms have a varying degree of intensity. It's not like a linear spectrum.
And I like the fact that we're able to have a longer conversation around it, something you're not trying to squeeze into a 60-second reel. What would you say are some misconceptions around you?
I wish it wasn't a misconception. Sometimes when I'll meet fans, they'll think I'm rich living in Hollywood. And that's so I wish that was true, but no. Maybe it's my Dracula style,
Yeah. They're like, well, he's always wearing tuxedos.
Yeah, he's always wearing tuxedos. Why wouldn't he be? I always try to be, open and honest about how I feel in videos. And I feel like I get a lot of really great like feedback from audiences too, like from fans, and that's something I do want to bring up too, is just how lucky I've been with the feedback I get. And I never imagined I would get responses like this. I have people say that, I feel comfortable with my autism because of you. I had a lady who had an autistic son, and she said, you give me hope. And then I also have people who say, I watched Dracula because of you.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. I remember it was one person, he was like a teenager, and I forget how it came about, but in the comment he said something about how Facebook was for old people, but he just watched the 1931 Dracula and loved it.
Yep. See, we're constantly opening people's minds.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've also got an online store, if I'm not mistaken, right? Where you have some merch that you can purchase if you want to take your love of Lugosi theater even further.
Yes, I do. It's on a website called the Vamporium, and this company is called Monster Kids, and it's an autistic dad and his son, and they've created this. They've got some wonderful artists, and they made these. It's incredible. It's based on me. It's like it's Dracula T-shirts, but it's like you could tell it's me. And my favorite, it's a Dracula coffee cup. It's of me, and it's this is before, and then you turn it around, and then it's after. I drank the coffee and now I'm awake. And they're gonna be coming out with it's not available yet, but they're even going to be coming out with a Bobby the Autistic Dracula mask. I'm going to have my own Halloween mask, Aaron.
No way.
Yeah.
The link to your store will be below in the description of this video as well. And then, if I'm not mistaken, you also had a short story published recently?
It was a little while ago, and it was actually in the book Ed Wood's Warm and Gore Wishes and Rubber Octopus Dreams. This actually, it won the Rondo Award for Best Horror Fiction this year. And so I have just one short story in it, but it's all the authors are like well-known people, like Gregory Mank, the horror historian. He's in there, and I'll show it to you. So it's all based on the movies by Ed Wood.
Uh-huh.
And my story is called Mr. and Mrs. Ghoul. And there's even a picture of me and my big sister in here, recreating the famous Planet from Outer Space pose.
That's amazing. And what's the name of the book again?
It's called Ed Wood's Warm and Gore Wishes and Rubber Octopus Dreams.
Great. My final question is, as we're heading into the spooky season, what would you say are 5 movies that get you in the mood for Halloween?
Well, Dracula, of course.
Sure.
You can't have Halloween without Dracula. And
why would you want to?
Or why would you want to? Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. You have all the monsters. Halloween, the original Michael Myers movie, that always puts me in the Halloween spirit. I grew up in the 90s, so Hocus Pocus. And I love Arsenic and Old Lace too.
Oh yeah.
That really gives me a Halloween feel. Like even like the opening credits with the owls. Because remember, it's set on Halloween. On the original Broadway play, it was Boris Karloff played the character Jonathan Brewster.
Yep.
But when they were doing the tour, Boris wasn't going on tour, and they asked Bela Lugosi to do it. So he said, "I'll do it on one condition: you change the line to 'You look like Bela Lugosi.'"
Now, obviously, you have a great love for Bela Lugosi. How do you feel about the other Draculas, Christopher Lee, Frank Langella, etc.?
I think they all do a great job too. I think everyone brings something different to the table, and every iteration of Dracula, it's keeping that character alive. Because, like I said earlier, he's not just a movie character. He's not just a book character. He is part of our culture. He is in Halloween decorations. So like, Hotel Transylvania movies coming out, they're keeping Dracula alive. Count Van Count on Sesame Street, he's introducing people to Dracula. The new Nosferatu movie, of which I thought was amazing. Like that's introducing more people to Dracula, a more darker version of Dracula.
Yeah. It's I think it's an enduring legacy, Bram Stoker's creation, and of course Bela Lugosi's incarnation is going to be the most iconic for people. Like he is Dracula to most people.
He is, and I think the thing when people see him, he's everything you expect him to be, but better than you ever imagined he would be at it. You kind of expect him to say stuff like "I am Dracula," but you don't expect how charismatic and how creepy he is when he does it.
Yep. I would say the same thing about you, Bobby. You're delightful, and you're even more delightful once you get to know you.
Thank you so much. You are too. You are too.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's been just so delightful to actually just get to chat with you for an extended amount of time. Usually we're focusing on a movie. Here I get to just talk about you and how awesome you are and all the amazing things you've done. And again, this is benefiting Scare-A-Thon 2025, which is all the proceeds are going to the International Rescue Committee. If you go down below in the description of this video, you'll find the link that will take you right to the donation platform. Please give and give generously. The International Rescue Committee has been around for almost 100 years, helping people who need help. And that is what we do here, is we keep sharing the scare. And Bobby, thank you so much. Looking forward to having you on again very, very soon. Have an amazing October and Halloween.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, honored to be part of the Scare-A-Thon. What you're doing is fantastic. And I hope you have a happy Halloween too.
Until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.